From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and Million Dollar Listing, this is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Wow Report, where we count down the top 10 things of the week that made us go wow. I am joined this week by James St. James, literary sensation, the Truman Capote of our times, but let's hope with a happier ending.
Oh, I hope it's a happy ending, too. I hope for happy endings.
And fresh as a daisy, back from vacation, Blake Jacobs.
Hello.
Tom is out on top secret super assignment, and so we will miss him. But Tom does listen, you know, when he's not on the air.
What?
He was the one who pointed out last week he was listening, and he heard a repeat. He did not hear the new episode.
Well, you know, that's interesting because I think I've mentioned on the show before that I have never listened to one episode out of the past 5 years. I refuse to do it on the grounds that I will start overthinking myself and start thinking I've got to change my voice. I've got to change the way I talk.
Well, you don't have to worry because they're not even playing the show.
And I cut out all of your parts.
There you go.
We have a fantastic countdown for you, so let's jump in. Number 10.
Number 10.
Hitman hit Netflix this week after being in the theaters. It stars yummy Glen Powell and a woman named Adria Arjona that I didn't know, but now I've gone back and looked up her IMDb, and she's absolutely fantastic. Glen plays this nerdy professor who moonlights as a hitman who works undercover for the cops. And he finds he's actually quite good at adapting all these different personas that he needs to meet with different clients. And one of the clients is this beautiful, beautiful woman who hires him to kill her abusive husband. And he talks her out of it, and they begin this torrid love affair. And she is red hot, and the sex scenes are just, unbelievably scorching, just fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. And he's gorgeous and funny and hysterical, and they both deserve to be superstars. I think he is really on the verge of being one of the biggest superstars of our era. Now, it's funny because Justin, who works at World of Wonder, told me about 2 weeks ago that this was the best movie of the year. It's the best movie he's seen in ages. He saw it in the theater. He kept gushing about how funny it was, how it was nonstop. It was great, blah, blah, blah. Well, then my sister, though, said that it was the most boring movie she'd ever seen. She fell asleep 4 different times. She hated it. She couldn't get into it. So I went into it like not knowing what to expect, but I really, really enjoyed it. Blake, you're sort of giving me a scrunched up face. Did you watch it and hate it?
I haven't watched it, but everything I've heard is people like saying, why is everyone liking this movie? I don't like it. You know,
well, what I think happened is that my sister went into it thinking it was an action movie about a hitman and there was going to be all sorts of explosive action sequences and stuff. But it's a rom-com. It is completely just a romantic comedy about these two. And he is like, at one point, he dresses up like Tilda Swinton. And at another point, he was in Top Gun. So he does this like weird Tom Cruise impersonation at one point. And it's just this funny sort of goofy, like he's just a goofball nerd who stumbles into the fact that he's a really fantastic hitman. And so that's sort of the joke of the movie. But nothing really happens until the very end. But it's not a big action movie. But I do think you should see it. It's really fabulous.
I never knew this was in theaters.
Yeah.
But briefly, so because I noticed you didn't go to the theater, it's on Netflix.
Oh, right? It's on Netflix. It debuted on Netflix this week, and it's so yeah.
I guess Hitman and Fall Guy couldn't be more different, but I just feel they have a similar title.
They do, and yet Fall Guy is the one that is nonstop adventure action, but it's another one that I love too. It's weird because the only movie this year that seems to be breaking through is Bad Boys, and we can talk about that some other time.
Not going to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't think we should touch it with a 10-foot pole, frankly.
Who's the director of Hitman?
Oh, it's
Richard Linklater.
Yeah, Days
the legendary
News. Yes, of course. Boyhood. all of those. So it's in good hands, and it has a definite Linkletter feel.
So that's a thumbs up, James.
Definite thumbs up, big thumbs up, 2 massive thumbs up my butthole for Glen.
Okay. Guys, it might be Pride Month, but there's no need to be like. All right, let's go on to number 9.
Number 9.
We started a nightclub. This is, in the summer, I guess I just love to read books and listen to podcasts, weirdly.
I don't think it's just in the summer for you, Finn.
No, it's not, is it? I'm just very, This is called We Started a Nightclub. It is the birth of the Pyramid Cocktail Lounge as told by those who lived it. It's written by Brian Butterick, who was one of the partners at Pyramid, Susan Martin, who was the publicist for Pyramid, and I don't know Kęstutis Nakas. Is that right? Am I saying it right?
Kęstutis Nakas, I believe, was a doorman at the Mud Club, maybe something like that. He's been around forever and ever and ever. And I remember Old Details magazine because that name leaps out of the page at you.
It's a great name.
Yeah.
He, at the Pyramid Club, he directed Titus Andronicus.
Right. I mean, Anne Magnuson, and Anne talks about it in our podcast. That what a spectacular
like Shakespeare's, what is considered Shakespeare's worst play, but also you might wonder, like, what is a nightclub in the East Village doing, staging Titus Andronicus? But that was very much what the Pyramid was all about. And this book, which is, oh my God, James, it's like almost 500 pages long. It weighs a ton, and it's in the sort of format of an oral history.
Yes, where you have everybody talking about it, everybody who was ever at the club, whoever performed.
Every time I read an oral history, I'm like, ugh, because you just crave an editor to cut out all the repetition. But
really, because I love a good oral history.
Well, I am loving this.
Enjoy them.
I'm finding this to be a bit of a page turner. I can't put it down, and I can't figure out if it's because I was there for some of it and performed on the Pyramid stage with Randy as the Pop-Tarts, or because it's really good. I think it's because it's really good. I want people to take this in the right way. This book is a mess, but it's fabulous. And
well, because the Pyramid was a mess. Yes.
That the Pyramid was.
Yeah.
And for the first time in a way, recognized that the Pyramid had a really clear aesthetic, of sort of high versus low, cardboard sets. It was sort of genuinely.
But you'd have these cardboard sets, but you'd have Ethel Eichelberger be doing, Maria Callas, or some sort of the Trocadero ballet people would come in, and so you had high and low in a way that does not happen anymore. I mean, this was the highest of the high and the lowest of the low.
And sort of crammed in, it almost sort of baroque, the level of little details and weird shit that people would do. And there'd be like 3 or 4 different performances a night in between disco dancing and people dancing on the bar. And I feel that when you read books about nightclubs, your sort of takeaway is always like, too bad, so sad, you kind of had to be there. But this, I feel I am there. And I don't think it's just because to some degree I was there. I feel it conjures it up. It's very raw and immediate and very true to what it was like.
Well, also the fact that it is so immersive. It's 500 pages. It is 1,000 photographs. It is 1,000 different voices coming at you from the past.
Yeah.
It really is something that you can sink into and just lose yourself in a way that maybe you can't with other books. It's interesting because we have Susan on the Night Fever podcast, and she, did Desperately Seeking Susan, but she also did a film called Smithereens, which was a punk rock classic, early 80s. I rewatched it as I was reading this book. So I feel like I was actually I am soaking in early 80s.
I tell you, James, we're about to have a major cultural early 80s moment, because there is this book, the Pyramid book, there is the Susan Seidelman book, Guy Trebay's book is coming out.
Read Guy Trebay's. Yes, I keep meaning to get that. It's funny because I'm doing the Candy Darling, and it's a lot of the 70s East Village.
I think in about 10 years, we're going to be seeing endless amounts of movies from this period. I mean, one thing is like we're in it, the Pop Tarts are in it, but not very much. I was a bit like, God, I remember like formative experiences there. And like, it's John Kelly this, John Kelly that, who is of course genius, and I love him, but I'm like, I'm feeling.
Well, it is funny how sometimes I find myself being erased out of Clubland.
Erased.
There was a oral history about the World Nightclub in Interview magazine. Now, I did the door of the club for 5 years. Every night I was there, and I was not asked to be part of the oral history. And I was not mentioned once, and I threw parties there. I was integral to the success of the nightclub, and I have been completely erased out of it. So do not feel bad for having a few mentions, because sometimes you get none.
Some is better than none. And but I'll tell you, in spite of its sort of like density and this sort of cacophony of voices and extraordinary artists and eccentrics, all of that, in spite of that sort of crazy, again, that Baroque sense where there's so much coming at you, you can't see what it is. You can't see the wood for the tree. There is an underlying narrative here, which is about Bobby Bradley, who I remember very clearly as the sort of wunderkind, gorgeous, young, energetic, enthusiastic, giving people shows and giving people opportunities, along with Sister Dimension and Brian Barderick and Susan Martin. But it was definitely Bobby Bradley. And of course, I haven't quite got there yet, but as is so often the case, fabulous and fantastic, and then the drug roller coaster story kicks in, and it all ends where those stories so sadly often do.
All of them with Hattie, who was Brian Butterick. I told you that I had a really nice conversation with Hattie before she passed away. It was a really beautiful.
I would love to be able to call up Brian now, because he was always very Hattie, slightly intimidating, right?
Yeah, I was terrified of Hattie.
Yeah.
But then I told you she was working the bar of a tiny little East Village dive, and one day I stumbled in after a night out for a drink, and I was the only one in the bar, and we sat and had the most lovely conversation, and I realized that intimidating facade was just that. It was, it was a drag persona that was not
shyness and what have you. So, but what a great guy too, and I can't wait.
Is this on Amazon?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's also interesting because, AIDS takes a terrible toll, but a lot of drug addiction, it initially a great explosion, and then of glamour and ideas and fabulousness, and then,
Well, it's interesting because it so often is the case in these stories where in the beginning the drugs are mushrooms and ecstasy and psychedelics and LSD and LSD sugar cubes and stuff, and then it goes into cocaine, and then everyone is doing heroin. I mean, it's that slippery slope in all of these stories.
I guess I was just too bourgeois or
not cool enough.
Definitely not cool enough. It was never part of that 70s fuck it punk thing. I always have my mind on the 80s and the commodification and
but so much of the 80s, though, the commodification and all of that, and it was that go-go 80s aesthetic where it was the cocaine fueled that, especially in the later part of the 80s.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I can't recommend it enough. It's fabulous book. It's a reference book on the one hand, and then you can just read it. I mean, it's like amazing.
And it's in oral histories. You can read one person's account and then close the book. I mean, like, you can do it in little bite-sized chunks, and it will, it'll take 6 months to get through it, but you can do it's very easy to read. It's a very easily digested book.
Absolutely. Let's go on. Number 8, Blake.
Number 8.
So Monday, I came home from work and I was working in the yard, got in the shower, and I saw a little bug fall down. So I didn't think anything of it. Then the next day, I had these little bites on my chest. And I was working with James, and I showed them to him. And I was like, what do you think these are?
You got fleas from James?
Yeah. And
My first thought was, oh my God, it looks like bedbug bites. And then
Right.
I thought, were you like in a water where there were like sand chiggers or sand fleas or something like
Right.
that? But then
it didn't hurt at all.
but the third thing I said to you was, it could be anything, but Shingles doesn't care.
Right.
And then, because the commercial, Shingles doesn't, I'm taking care of myself.
Yeah,
Shingles doesn't care.
Oh, jump back.
Oh, it's a very famous commercial, and none of you have heard of it. So it's this fabulous joke I'm telling. It lands so flat, and I'm sure nobody in the radio audience knows what I'm talking about either. But when I say Shingles doesn't care, I dissolve into peals of laughter.
But you deliver it so well. It's funny, even if
I'm
we have
taking
no
my
idea.
vitamins. Shingles doesn't care. I've been checking my cholesterol. Shingles doesn't care.
He's not only Truman Capote, he is also Don Rickles.
So wait, so this bug fell off, but it wasn't a bug.
Yeah, so around 4 p.m. yesterday, my sister's a RN, so I took a picture of it, and I was like, are these bug bites? And she was like, I'd bet money that those are shingles. And I was like, it can't be shingles. I don't feel anything, So I go to urgent care. It's shingles, which I thought is weird. Like, they were like, you didn't have the vaccine, and I'm like, well, I thought you couldn't take it until after you're 50. Apparently you can take it, so I suggest everyone goes out and gets the Shingrix vaccine, which is the commercial that James loves so much.
And I was lucky that I got my shingles vaccine when I got my second COVID booster. They suggested it because I'm so old.
My mother has had it twice this year. And one of my best friends who's worked at World of Wonder, he had it, and he's younger than I am.
Stress brings it on sometimes. And there's some sort of, vitamin deficiency, I think maybe brings it on too. I don't know.
They really don't know what it is. But yeah, a lot of people say it's stress. I've had...
Well, are you stressed, Blake? Do we stress you out?
Fenton doesn't.
That's not what you say to me. So now you're saying to Fenton that it's me, but to me you say that it's Fenton. So I don't think any of us can believe anything out of it. I don't even think it's shingles. I think you're just trying to get another vacation.
But you said, Blake, you saw a bug falling off. So like maybe you got crabs and shingles.
Well, I thought that the bug, I guess in my mind, I was hoping it was the bug bite. But the lady at the urgent care was like, what bug bites you like that? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe it gets stuck in your shirt and it's trying to get out and it's biting you. But yeah, so.
So what happens now? Do you have to go back for?
Luckily, I think I caught it in time because a lot of people think it's like a heat rash. So they wait several days before they go into the doctor. I went in the first day and I got like these antiviral medications. So hopefully I'm all good.
Is it infectious that way? I don't know. Like, do you have to?
No, it's not.
But if you've ever had chicken pox, you have the virus that causes shingles. I mean, I know a lot of kids now, they have a chicken pox vaccine that you can take.
Well, I remember I was mad at my mother until the day she died because they would have chickenpox parties when I was growing up. And I remember her boyfriend's son had chickenpox and mom was like, I'm taking you out of school today and you're going to go hang out with Dustin or whatever his name was. And I had to go spend the entire day with him. And then I got chickenpox and it was terrible.
That is horrible.
I know. She purposely gave me chickenpox.
No, but
I've heard of that.
Back in the day, there wasn't a vaccine for chickenpox. And if you didn't get it when you were a kid, it could be really serious when you got it as an adult. So she did have your well-being in mind.
Well, but you can't tell a child who is like scratching the head, covered in bumps.
True.
Your mother did a good thing.
Oh, well, Blake, get well soon. And we're so glad you're here with us today.
It could be a lot worse. I'm lucky that I have it this,
Well, I remember had it as well. And
we can't be talking about everybody's health history on the
radio. Well, it's not like it's, an STD or anything. You didn't get it from being in a bathhouse, for Christ's sake. But anyway, someone else at World of Wonder had it, and they were in excruciating pain because it was on their back, and they couldn't lie down. Oh, it was just terrible.
God.
I remember
our new Netflix reality series, Owning Manhattan, looks at the glamorous, adrenaline-filled universe of high-stakes real estate in New York City. World-famous broker, CEO Ryan Sahant stops at nothing, building his brokerage, goes after the most extensive luxury listings in the city, leading an ambitious army of agents to become the number one brokerage in the world. And I will just say about Ryan's new show that is on Netflix on June 28th. It's fabulous. Ryan is amazing. But he took over the Tommy Hilfiger flagship store in Soho. That's his headquarters.
Wow, it's huge.
Yeah. And it's this teeming, it is the Soho house, if you will, of real estate set in Soho. It's absolutely incredible, really. It's a great series.
I can't wait to watch it.
All right. Blake, got a question?
I do. What soda pop is now second behind Coca-Cola after Pepsi fell to third?
We'll have the answer right after the break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Blake. Tom is out this week. We had a question about soda.
Yep, soda pop. What soda pop is now second behind Coca-Cola after Pepsi fell to third place?
I don't know, 7-Up?
Okay. I would say maybe a Fanta or Dr. Pepper.
Dr. Pepper.
Oh yeah, of course. I hear it everywhere I go. I hear people ordering Dr. Pepper.
What's happening to Pepsi? I thought Pepsi was in the ascendant.
Ugh, I hate Pepsi.
Yeah, too syrupy.
Okay.
It's all my dad drinks.
My dad liked RC Cola. Isn't that funny? He would drive 2 hours to a store that carried RC Cola.
Yeah. Give me a Diet Coke.
3 new House of Love flavors at houseoflovecocktails.com. Vodka soda citrus, the perfect vodka soda bursting with citrusy goodness. Passion fruit margarita made with authentic tequila and natural passion fruit. That is 100 calories, 4%. Totally tropical mocktail for those of you doing the sober thing. Natural guava, passion fruit, citrus flavors. Best paired with Valley Girl energy and long walks on the beach. Or, if you're me, just shove some gin in it. And then you got a totally tropical gin and tonic.
Now, are all these new flavors going to be available at DragCon?
They certainly will. And they're also available at houseoflovecocktails.com. And they're delicious. My favorite, of course, is the tangerine margarita because it's 13%.
I like that. Is it pomegranate vodka? Is that one?
Oh, I love that pomegranate lime vodka. That's my other favorite.
That's so good. Yes.
It is, right?
And it's so funny because I remember last year at DragCon, I wasn't there, but I was watching it on the cam. And you could see all these drunken drag queens toddling around, falling face down. They are so potent. My God, you had the entire
they really are
wasted.
Yeah, tasting. We were giving out free tasting. Went through something like 30,000 cans. All right, we're counting down top 10 things that made us go wow. Number 7, James.
Number 7.
I don't know if you guys were watching the scandal as it unfolded live last week when President Joe Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden went to France for the D-Day, with for the French President Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron, and Camilla and Charles were there as well. Okay. Now, there was a moment where the First Lady of France, Brigitte Macron, was standing with Camilla in front of British Normandy Memorial. And just as a sensitive woman, it's a sad moment. Brigitte went to go hold Camilla's hand. Well, Camilla snapped that hand back, looked absolutely horrified that someone would touch her, have the nerve to touch the queen, for Christ's sakes. And she just had this look like she was like Brigitte had pooped her pants or something. She recoiled physically from the First Lady, and the First Lady was just panic stricken, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? And immediately the world cleaved into 2 separate camps where you have the Brits saying, you should know better that one never touches the queen. One does not touch a sitting monarch. It's against all protocol.
Monarchy is not a contact sport.
you have, Americans or the rest of the world saying, for Christ's sakes, this is an antiquated ceremony type thing where, like, just, and for the royal family who keeps fucking up after fuck up after fuck up after, bad photo, bad optics,
That's
bad optics.
why we love them.
No, but no. For the past year, with Princess Kate being disappeared, and Charles fucking up at every turn with Harry, they really need a win, and this was not a win for the royal family. But the capper on all of this is that for the rest of the weekend, Brigitte Macron and Jill Biden were holding hands and giggling and hugging each other, and they were whispering, let's stick it to that cold bitch, let's stick it to that ice queen, because they could not have been sweeter, and they were like practically skipping and holding hands together to just stick it to that mean old Camilla.
No, don't come for Camilla. And as
wait. Are you pro Camilla? The
fact that the royal families had lots after lot. James, losing is the new winning. It seems to be working really well for them. And did you see that King Charles's portrait, the one that is Baphophad?
Yes, they came for it. What was it they put on it? What was
some sort of Wallace and Gromit? I don't know what they put on. Like, I don't even. What are they protesting? Oil? Maybe not.
Is it climate change or something? I can't. And this is me being a fuddy-duddy, but I can't get behind destroying works of art. I can't. But they make their point and they get their publicity, so there you go. But you honestly think that it was wrong for the First Lady of France to reach out and touch the Queen during a moment, a sad moment where it could have just been a uniting of nations?
It was a very lovely thought of hers, but the only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about, right? So
I guess it does remind me of it happened with Tom Cruise at the premiere of Top Gun, when he reached out to try and help Princess Kate up the stairs, and she sort of snapped her fan back too, like, what are you doing? But if you remember, Michelle Obama put her arm around the waist of the Queen, and the Queen returned it and put her arm around Michelle Obama, and it was a beautiful moment. And it's sort of what people were saying was that if the Queen does it, that becomes the proper etiquette. If the Queen says that it's okay, if Camilla had just held hands, then holding hands would have been fine from then on. But she chose to make a big deal out of it and a big poo-poo face.
I am impressed by your the keenness of your royal watching. I mean, I didn't even know this had happened.
Do not think of yourself as British anymore, and I think you avoid all British news.
I don't have a good answer for that. Let's move on. Number 6.
Number 6.
The Little Pageant That Could. I don't know if you had a chance to see it. This is a fantastic documentary that World of Wonder came in and produced. John Carlos Frey directed it, and it follows Best in Show, which is a drag pageant that has been going on for 33 years in LA every year. And it started out in 89 or 90 as a spoof of the Miss America pageant. Some friends just got together and did a little drag thing in their apartment, sort of celebrating the Miss America show. And it just grew and grew and grew. And over the years, they've raised something like $6 million for HIV, people with AIDS, especially people facing homelessness. Because back in the day, not only if you got HIV or AIDS would you be shunned, but you'd basically get evicted from your apartment and you'd end up homeless and on the street. And it's an amazing show because these are not professional drag queens. In fact, most of them are people themselves who are sober, and they come together and they get in drag and they put on a show. And some of the shit they get up to in this show is incredible. It's not slick, it's not pretty, but it is so off the hook crazy, and they videotaped it for 33 years. So there's this great archive that John Carlos Frey has turned into this really moving and funny documentary. And remember Louis Extravaganza?
Yeah, sure.
The Madonna, Vogue, gorgeous. He came to us like a few years ago and said, oh, my friend's got all this footage. He wants to do a film. He's got a rough cut. Will you take a look at it? And that's how we got involved, because of Lewis. And Lewis has been in the show a couple of times. And it's just really good. And the reason I'm mentioning it is because it's had its world premiere last night, actually, at the Provincetown Film Festival, and is having another screening on Saturday. So if you're in P-Town, honestly, it's well worth going to see. There's little appearances by Kathy Griffin, Bob Mackie, Martin Sheen, Jennifer Coolidge, Chris Pratt even. And you know what's so great? This started as this little thing in this room. And the guy who started it, who's no longer with us, passed away from AIDS, very sadly. He was obsessed with Vanessa Williams. And when Vanessa Williams's crown was taken away from her, he was outraged and incensed. And one year, having started this pageant, and it grew and it grew and it grew, he himself, Alexis, won the crown. And before he died, he said, "This crown, I want you to give it to Vanessa Williams." And it results in one of the most moving moments in the film. But also, it is hilariously funny. It's certainly off color, not particularly politically correct, but it's a history spanning over, not multi generations, but several decades, and certainly over one generation. So,
and what's it called, and where can we watch it?
It's called The Little Pageant That Could, the drag show that never quits. It's going to be at the P-Town Festival, and more to come on distribution soon.
If nowhere else, we'll see it on Wow Presents Plus at some point.
Oh, it will be on Wow Presents Plus. So, yeah. Number 5, Blake.
Number 5.
This woman was swallowed by quicksand while walking down the beach in Maine.
Yes, I did hear about this.
Swallowed in a permanent sense.
Well, I know she survived.
Oh, good. Okay.
She's alive. She survived. Her name is Jamie Accord. She was walking down the beach in Maine with her husband, and she suddenly felt like they're walking side by side, and she said it was like she fell down a manhole, like waist deep in sand, and couldn't get up. And she was told her husband, "I can't get out of this." And when they finally pulled her out, she was covered in cement, wet sand. And apparently it's because a lot of river water had been coming to the beach or something. And I guess the water, the solubility or science stuff of water made the sand, very easy
quicksand.
to
yes, it turned into quicksand. Yes.
But it's that thing we used to never hear about quicksand anymore, and now here's this thing about quicksand, and it's caused by climate change.
Well, there was a Facebook post I saw that I was going to talk about. It used to be a staple of TV shows,
every Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie, Hogan's Heroes. No matter where you were, somehow somebody fell into quicksand, and they said that it's a Gen X thing where the Bermuda Triangle, quicksand, and self-immolation or self-combustion.
Spontaneous combustion.
Yes, those were the 3 things that children were most afraid of growing up to face. But then once you become an adult, you never face any of them. But interestingly, you hear on Gilligan's Island and everything when they fell in, or whatever, you had to form a human chain of people, and you had to get the vines off the tree and get it to them, and they would pull it in. But to come to find out that quicksand really only is waist deep or even knee deep. It's not that deep enough that people drown in. So it was all a big Hollywood conspiracy theory to get us to be terrified.
So she could have stayed there up to her waist. She wasn't in mortal peril.
Well, hopefully, unless the tide came in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. Well, isn't that the whole plot of that Samuel Beckett play that you went to go see, Fenton, that you hated so much, where she's buried in the flower pot and keeps getting up to her neck?
Oh, I hadn't realized that it was okay.
Happy Days or something like that. Was that what it was?
I have no recollection.
Was it Alan Cumming was in it? And
oh yeah, I did go see that, but I can't remember what play it was. It was, all those Beckett plays are a bit minimal, right?
Yes, I love. I happen. He's a hero of mine, so I happen to love them. But I know people get frustrated. Anyway, we're veering off course.
One thing I do know about Quicksand is it was a B-side on Britney's Circus album, and it's one of the best songs ever written by Lady Gaga. Quicksand.
Quicksand, 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 quicksand. I'm in quicksand. I love it. That's my favorite song. I love me some quicksand.
Is that how it goes?
No, I'm just
Yeah, of course.
All right, well, let's take a break then. All right, let's take a break. House on Fire, our new show has just premiered. It's amazing. 2 episodes are on That Presents Plus, that wowpresentsplus.com. The first episode is free on YouTube, just to give you a taste. And we had an amazing premiere in New York. Honey Balenciaga, Limbana Aja, Olivia Lux, Candy Muse were there. And the show basically follows the lives of the House of Miyake Mugler as they juggle the pressure of competition and mentoring their talented cohorts in New York's competitive ballroom scene. It's really good.
Delicious.
It is.
I've got a question for us. What are customers adding to their Dr. Peppers at Sonic after TikTok user Mississippi Meemaw uploaded a video showing her adding the condiment to her Dr. Pepper on May 1st?
a condiment, not a liquor.
All right, we'll have the answer right after the break here on the Wow Report.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hey, welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Blake. Tom is out this week. And what was that question?
I asked, what are customers adding to their Dr. Pepper Sonic after TikTok user Mississippi Meemaw uploaded a video showing her adding the condiments to her Dr. Pepper on May 1st?
I think Mississippi Meemaw was adding Rohypnol to her Dr. Pepper.
Which I'm sure Sonic has a plentiful supply of.
Well, I guess, okay, if it's a condiment in, it's either ketchup or hot sauce. Maybe hot sauce.
Hot sauce, probably.
It is pickles.
Oh,
Ew.
James.
Ew.
Sorry.
Oh my god. Well,
Yeah.
you know, because the thing that gives Dr. Pepper its flavor is prunes. So you're basically having prunes and pickles mixed together.
Ew.
Oh my god.
Gonna have an explosive reaction.
Oh, yuck.
We are counting down the top 10 things that make us go wow. We've reached number 4.
Number 4.
Anderson Cooper's on CNN has a series called The Whole Story, or
Yeah,
Uh-huh,
360, right?
no. This is separate from that. He does a
Okay.
series of specials called The Whole Story or The Full
You
Story.
can also watch it on Discovery Plus, I believe, and Max.
Yes, okay. But this episode was a very special episode called Drag Wars. It was on Sunday night. It examined not only the history of drag, but the current anti-drag laws and legislation and anti-drag sentiment that seems to be sweeping the country. And the first half was all sort of like older queens in sort of their clown costumes doing, you know, drag story time for kids and talking about how, you know, they're just clowns, they're harmless, they just want to spread a little glitter through the world, that type of thing, which we, you know, we need to be reminded of that over and over and again. You know, then there was all this stuff about Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, the governor Greg Abbott, and their, you know, their anti-drag laws. It went through all of that. Lady Bunny was on it talking about the history of wig stock. There was a lot about Rue. Rue was on it talking about her early days with Bunny and then, you know, making Drag Race and things like that. The second half was the history of drag in America, and they had a couple of drag historians, but primarily it was a woman named Alyssa Max Goodman, who has a book called Glitter and Concrete. She is a guest on our show, our podcast, Night Fever. She is the first episode next week. She is going to be talking about some of the things that she talked about on this. Some of the drag superstars of the early 20th century, late 19th century: Julian L. Tunge, Bert Savoy, Gladys Bentley, the Pansy craze, the Lavender Scare, all that stuff she talks about on this show. But she goes into a deeper dive with us. So I just wanted to point out that, yes, you can be watching CNN, but for your deep dive, you're going to want to go to Wow Presents Plus or wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify,
So that is coming up next week, right, James?
Yes, it is. So be on the lookout for that on our social media. We will.
It's a bonus sneak peek of the whole season, I guess, right? But
yes.
Like we're dropping an episode early because it's Pride.
It's a bonus episode. It's a bonus Pride episode about the history of drag, and I think you'll find it absolutely fantastic and interesting.
I don't want to upstage the moment, but Monday, June 24th, I'm going to be in New York at the Barnes & Noble bookstore talking with Simon Doonan, the author of Drag, The Complete Story. The book has been reissued, and I'm very proud to say I was invited to write the foreword, which I feel is very distinguished.
It is. It's very scholarly of you. And I guess 3 makes a trend. We have Anderson Cooper, World of Wonder podcast, Night Fever podcast, and Simon Dunas. So that's a hat trick right there. That is 3, 3, 3. So it must be a trend.
Trend alert. Right. Okay. Let's move on to number 3.
Number 3.
Kind of continuing in this theme of books and pride and nightclubs, I'm reading Pete Burns' autobiography, Freak Unique. Pete Burns, Dead or Alive, You Spin Me Round. Pete Burns died in, also shockingly, 2016, which is
almost 10 years.
Yeah. And he went on Celebrity Big Brother, which gave him a huge sort of back in the spotlight, because as you know, the Big Brother house was raided by police in response to viewer complaints because Pete had claimed he was wearing a coat made out of monkey skin or gorilla fur. I can't remember which it was. It wasn't either of those things. It was just a regular old ratty fur coat he'd picked up at a junk shop. But I guess he knew how to command the viewer's attention. And
I had a monkey fur in the 80s.
But the police will be at your door.
Well, I don't have it anymore, for crying out loud. But it was completely legal. I mean, it was a big thing in the 1940s.
I mean, of course, Pete was big in the 80s, right? Or was it the 90s for You Spin Me Round and Round and Lover Come Back to Me, and Stock Aitken Waterman recorded these really propulsive dance floor fillers. I mean,
Brand New Lover.
I mean, and we actually, Waterman actually made a couple of things with him. We made a series with him after he was released from prison because he got in a tussle with his longtime partner and again was hauled off to prison and languished in prison for many weeks. And then when he was released, we made a film following him. And then after that, we did a series.
Because the person who got him, who bailed him out of jail, was a super fan. Yes. And the point of the show was that he went to go live with the super fan. He was forced to live with his super fan to make up for the.
He was delivered into the custody of his super fan, who was, don't sue me, kind of crazy. And the whole thing is just sort of almost unbelievable. And then a little bit after that, we did a series with him in which he was looking for an assistant. We followed him getting married. I mean, he was adorable. But this book, Freak Unique, I tell you, I'll just give you a couple of things. He says, I always knew exactly who and what I was, and it wasn't a cattle. You are what you eat, and who wants to be a lettuce? Beauty is in the eye of beholder, so behold yourself. I guess it's like radical candor or something,
it sounds just very surrealist,
yes,
garble.
His mum was a German. His dad met her in the war. She came to England penniless, didn't speak English, and only came with a loaf of bread, inside of which was a gold ingot. She smuggled in a gold ingot. She kept a garden, and the garden was always in bloom, even in winter, because all the flowers were plastic. I mean, and she would hold wig parties, like sort of Tupperware things, like all the locals would come over and buy wigs. I mean, he was amazing. And then he had this knack for just being in the right place at the right time. He went to Bieber. He saw the Rocky Horror Picture Show. He went to Vivienne Westwood's Sex. He was invited into the audience when the Sex Pistols went on that TV show and caused outrage. I mean, he was just like.
Well, interestingly, when talking about our podcast, Night Fever, we had Jane County on, and she talks about how she was performing in Manchester, and a young 14-year-old Pete Burns would come every night and wait backstage to talk to her and meet her and everything. So he really was one of those Zelig-like characters. Yeah.
He and Susie Sue.
Yeah, and Susie Sue, yeah.
Courtney Love berated him on the street and called him unmentionable things. And he's just got this deadpan thing about him. He's not complaining, but when you spin me round hit, he just is so hilarious about the indignities visited upon him. Like in Germany, they put him on a set with a record that span and just turned up the speed and spun him around.
I remember meeting him at the Party Monster thing, and he said that when he's on a show and he hears the opening chords of "You Spin Me Right Around" backstage, he just wants to curl into a fetal position and pretend like just say "Go away, go away, go away," because he just learned he grew to hate it so much.
Well, he said, the record company, every time he recorded a track, would say, well, it's not Spin Me Round. And he'd say, well, okay, why don't you release it again? And he said, they did. He said, even Judy Garland didn't have to suffer the indignity of Over the Rainbow being released and re-released and re-re-re-released as much as Pete Burns did. The other hilarious thing was, there's this beloved British cartoon, puppet, really, Basil Brush. Have you heard of Basil Brush? Basil Brush was a puppet, a squirrel sort of puppet thing, but just very perky, perfect for kids, really annoying. And Pete Burns went and performed Dead or Alive, You Spin Me Round. And then they said to him, you're going to be interviewed now by Basil Brush. And Pete Burns was like, the fuck I am. And just sort of left. He says his best, he's got so many good lines in this book. His to function in music, you have to be fundamentally brainless.
I think that covers a lot of people in the industry.
Right, it does. So he was supposed to go on tour with Madonna. She offered him, opening act, and he couldn't go because his mum was dying of cancer, and he was dedicated to his mum. He sat down with his mum one day and said, are you scared? And she said, of course I'm scared. I've never died before. So I don't know. It's just a brilliant book. It's not bitter, but it's so blunt,
scathing.
Yes, he didn't suffer fools gladly, I guess. There's, and that's available on Amazon. Oh, I feel I'm talking so much. What's number 2?
Number 2.
I have been watching, there's a new series on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network called My Adventures with Superman that just started about 3 weeks ago, season 2, and it is on at 11:30 on Saturday night. It's absolutely adorable. It's a wonderful way to while away your Saturday nights. It follows Clark Kent after he's out of college and he becomes an intern at the Daily Planet. And Lois Lane is also an intern and Jimmy Olsen is an intern. And so they're just starting out on their careers and they all become the bond in this threesome. And there's a young Lex Luthor. And then he's also he discovers that his cousin also escaped Krypton exploding, Kara Zor-El, and she becomes Supergirl. So he's on the hunt looking for his missing cousin, so he won't be alone on the planet anymore. But the animation is really adorable. Clark Kent is just so cute. I'm completely in love with him. And it's sort of a twist on what we think we know. But and if you get a chance, be sure to watch My Adventures with Superman on Cartoon Network.
When we come back, we'll reveal the number one thing that makes us go wow. But I will just tell you, Drag Race Mexican Season 2 Queen Reveal is out now everywhere on social media accounts. Lolita Banana and Tyga Brava are the hosts. They're going to be appearing at DragCon LA, which is July 19th and 20th. You can sign up at wowpresentsplus.com and, of course, get your tickets to DragCon. Can't wait to see you there. RuPaulsDragCon.com. All right? One more break, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. We've been counting down the top 10 things of the week that make us go wow with James St. James and Blake. And we've reached number 1.
Number 1.
Unless you've been hiding under a rock, you know that the Hunter Biden trial ended this week with a guilty verdict, because of course it did. You'd think that it would make it harder for Trumpers to argue that the system is rigged, but that is not the case. You'd think at the very least it would make them admit that they like laws restricting gun sales, but of course it does not. Somehow Republicans are fuming, according to Daily Mail and HuffPo, over this verdict. They're saying it was a cover up for the real crimes that the Biden family that were much worse, and that they sort of threw Hunter to the wolves so that they could cover up their bigger, crimes about, access and making billions of money. I don't know. It's so bonkers that they get a win, that they finally get a win, and they still won't accept it. You also, where is the NRA saying that they want, justice for Hunter Biden? Where are the Second Amendment gun nuts saying that they demand justice? It's literally thousands of people lie on their applications every year under drugs, and nobody, this gets prosecuted 0.0009% of the time or something like that. So it is obvious that they were making an example out of Hunter. I think that you could go to a case could be made for Don Jr. being coked out of his mind, buying one of his hundreds of guns. But of course, they aren't going to, explore that. So it's just an interesting thing. Does anyone have any thoughts?
Well, in the world of false equivalency, which, I guess comes about because of the need for both sides now.
Yes.
Everyone's saying, the history-making fact that a former president was convicted of a felony is now balanced by the fact that this is the first child of a sitting president to be convicted.
And the way that the mainstream media is just hyping this to all, that this is the biggest trial of the century, and it isn't. It was a nothing burger, and I hate when Republicans say nothing burger, but this was a nothing burger. But it's just.
I think we need Lisa Ferry to unpack it for us, don't you?
Yeah, she did do a very good job last week when I asked her about it.
Actually, yes. Yeah. And he faces 25 years in prison, right?
It probably won't happen, but in September he has to go back on trial again for the tax evasion, which is another nothing burger, because he paid back the money that he owed. So, why are they still pursuing it? But I have a feeling I saw today on The View, they were saying that because he's convicted of this charge, going into a tax fraud charge is going to make him even more likely that he will spend jail time due to the tax conviction, which he will no doubt get as well. So, and the beautiful thing was seeing, his family there every day. Dr. Jill.
Yes,
Biden,
and Jill
his father.
She flew over to France, flew back again to France,
Well, and the Republicans are furious about that too, saying that it was on the taxpayers' dime. Why are we flying the first lady back and forth? Blah blah blah. But then also that beautiful image of Joe Biden hugging his son. It's just none of the Trump kids ever get hugged like that. Have never
get hugged, and never get something that I will always stand by my son, and I love him no matter what. Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. Blake, feel better. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.